we're here because this is this incredible bookstore. You mind just pan around a little bit from me? So this is an amazing bookstore that we are going to talk about. Teresa's panning around the actual books, but if she goes all the way around, you will see a sitting area coming up, one of the many, and then go all the way around. And what do you see?
Oh.
You see a bar. What's a bar doing in a bookstore? What's a bookstore doing in a bar?
What are more books doing
Yeah.
back there? I know, I'll take over. And we're about a half a story below grade.
Yeah, so we're in a large building in Oakland near Lake Merritt. In the basement area where there are how many rooms?
Well, we have 3 discrete rooms on this side, and then we're pushing in the back as well.
Yeah. And this is Timothy Don, who is the proprietor here. He also is the inventor and developer of this whole space, which is quite extraordinary. So we're going to talk a little about that. Then we're going to show you how the books are organized, which is probably the most, well, it's the most relevant, but the most specific thing about books that everybody should hear about. So Timothy, so tell me about your past, so what you used to do.
I've been working for the past 20 years at a magazine in the history of art and ideas called Lapham's Quarterly, based in New York City.
Quite a famous quarterly.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It was founded and created by Louis Lapham, who just passed away a few weeks ago, so we're very sad about that. And at that magazine, each quarter, we would choose a single theme: war, money, sex, intoxication, scandal, water, and we would curate readings across history and throughout time, short readings around that theme, and a kind of historical digest, readings in art. So I was doing that for the past 20 years. I moved to Oakland 10 years ago to create and run something called the Oakland Book Festival, which took its inspiration as well from the quarterly. Each year we would gather about 150 editors, writers, artists, journalists, poets, novelists, historians, scholars at City Hall in downtown Oakland, and put them on panels together around one theme across the entire day. So the first year we dedicated the festival to the idea of the city. We had panels on everything from ancient Athens to contemporary Oakland. The second year was on labor, and we had panels on everything from sex work to prison labor to Marx's notion of unalienated labor as a freely given act of love. And the third year it was dedicated to equality and inequality. And our keynote speakers that year were Judith Butler and Angela Davis.
Wow.
So that was really quite fabulous, and you know, I would say very successful. I think about 7,000 people came each year. So I've been working in sort of publishing and editing and I guess event production for the past decade or so. Before I started this, I was working for the Commonwealth Club in California for a while and curating conversations.
Big deal, actually, in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's a great.
So what gave you the inspiration for this joint?
Well, you know, people keep asking that. It's hard to track down or trace back to specific inspirations. I'd say it mostly came from Louis Lapham, and from the quarterly, and from kind of dawning awareness. I mean, I have a degree in the history of ideas, a graduate degree in the history of ideas. But there was a dawning awareness that came as I worked with Louis of how bereft contemporary society is in the extent to which it's cut off from its own past and from its own archive. So I wanted to create a bookstore dedicated to history. So the bookstore is called Clio'S. Clio is the Greek muse of history, one of the 9 muses. So yeah, the inspiration really came from Louis. And then, you know, there was some desperation involved. COVID hit. I lost 2 of my writing gigs, and sort of got to the point of, well, I could get a certificate and become a teacher, or open a bookstore and a bar. Teacher, bookstore, bar, bookstore, bar. So
So bookstore bar became the idea.
Yes.
That was really early. And then you opened in January this past year?
We opened
Or
on
this year, rather?
we opened on New Year's Eve this year,
Yeah.
7.5 months ago.
And how has it been going so far?
I mean, it's been really wonderful. People are really thrilled. It's really fun to watch people come down the stairs for the first time and literally watch their mouths drop open. Sort of they see the books and they're like, oh wow, and then they see the people here and they're, oh wow, and then they see the bar and then they really get very happy. So the response from the, for lack of a better word, from the community, from the neighborhood, has been really.
How would you describe the neighborhood? Because the people I've seen here when I've been here before are very different to other bookstores I go to. Much younger, much more mixed.
Yeah.
Well,
Adams Point, this neighborhood is the most densely populated area of Oakland. There are 50,000 people in 1 square mile, and there's a lot of apartments versus sort of freestanding houses or bungalows. And yeah, the people are incredibly diverse. All colors, all classes, all creeds, all persuasions, all ages.
Yeah.
We deliberately put food service in the space because we didn't want to just be a bar, even though that would have been easier and perhaps more profitable. We put food service in the space because we want to have children in here. And
that's right. If you had a bar and a
you're
bookstore,
not-
kids couldn't come unless you serve food.
Yeah, exactly. You're not allowed to have kids in a bar in California under the age of 21 at any time, even when you're closed. So it means I couldn't do any children's programming, I couldn't do any classes for kids, and I couldn't let my own kids come in. So yeah,
So you're serving food soon.
yeah, we're serving food. We're serving food now, light bites,
Right.
very light bites.
Yeah. And explain a little bit about your philosophy about screens and privacy and conversation and community. Because your concept of community is very different than some other people's concept. It's much more pure.
So we have a policy in place. At first it was unspoken, and we would try to communicate it to patrons either through the vibe or sometimes directly. But then we had to put a sign up, and the policy is we're screen free here, and you're free of the screen when you come in here. You are actually liberated from the screen when you enter these doors. This is not a place for people to come as much as they'd like to come and flip open laptops and get to work, because we really want this to be a place where that bookstores really used to be and bars used to be, where you would go and you would enter the public space and you would engage with your fellow citizens and your neighbors in conversation, in debate. And my experience has been, I don't think I'm the only person, that screens tend to shut people off from one another. You look at a screen, I'm no longer looking at you, I'm doing this and I'm thinking about this and I'm totally distracted and I'm not really listening to what you're saying. Whereas when you put all that away, you get this person-to-person contact, which I've found sorely missing. And people, now that they've keyed into what we're doing here, are actually really happy about it.
And you tell people if they pull out a computer or a phone in a polite way, unless you're in a bad mood.
Happens more often than I'd like. No, I mean, now we say, oh, I'm so sorry. I guess you didn't see our sign on the way in, but we have people not to use their screens here. And most people really get it. Most people have been really kind. There've been a couple people who were like, well, why? And I'm like, well, because if you're on a screen, then we can't do this. We can't have this conversation that we're having right now. And you can't talk to that person over there. So that's one reason for no screens. The other reason for no screens, and also we have no internet presence. We are in the process of posting a website, but we have no social media deliberately. No Instagram, no Facebook, none of that stuff.
So you're not on TikTok.
No.
We're not going to use it.
Only fans. So the other part of this is that, except for now during off hours, we don't record or broadcast any of our events. So this is a dialogic experience. When I have author events here, sometimes people will write to me and be like, oh, this is really cool. Is there going to be a YouTube channel or recording? And I said, no, and deliberately not, because we want this to be a place of free and open speculative thinking. Nothing is being recorded here, which means that you can really take risks in your thinking and in your speech and say things that might otherwise, sound stupid, or that you might wish you could have taken back if they had gone public. We want this to be a truly a free space.
Well, also what I love is that you're really trying to encourage one-to-one
That's right.
conversations.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's the whole point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have described this, and it's fair, as what used to be called the third space.
Yeah.
It's not home. It's not work. It's the third space. Spaces that we used to have, and increasingly they're disappearing from the sort of cultural panorama.
So the next philosophy that I haven't detected is that you have a slightly different kind of organization of books. It's not that different. I'm joking. It's actually an understatement. So why don't you explain to us? The camera will follow us, and we'll explain what's going on here with the books.
So what's going on with the books is we have no sections in our arrangement of books. Everything is arranged chronologically. We arrange our books based on what I take to be the only objective measure, which is time. When things happened, when they were written, or the period that they're about. So right now, for example, we have these little markers that my daughter created. This is 1200 BC. And this is a book called 1177 BC, the year civilization collapsed. And immediately, Troy happens right around then. So we have the Iliad, but then we have contemporary retellings or accounts of the ancient original archival material right next to it. So we have Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles, more translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey. We have Derek Walcott's Omeros, right? That's a retelling of the Odyssey. We have James Joyce's Ulysses.
And then you have my favorite book of all times. Yeah.
We have Toni Morrison's Home. We have Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser here, because that's set during the Civil War. So it's also shelved over in the 1860s. But this book, a lot of people don't know it, is actually a retelling of the Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful novel retelling of the Odyssey. Then we have something by Aeschylus, the Oresteia, because at the end of, when Agamemnon comes back from war, that's what happens. Colm Tóibín's House of Names, which is a retelling of the Oresteia. So yeah, and then you get into Mary Renaud, Theseus. Then you get into the ancient Near East with the Scythians, the Assyrians, Babylonia, the Etruscans, the ancient Mediterranean, early Greek pre-Socratic philosophers, and then Chinese philosophy that's popping off then. So we don't have, for example, a section on Asian studies or Chinese philosophy. Books are shelved and organized, placed according to when they happened, when they're about.
And then there's two other aspects that are fascinating. So as you've already described, you have clusters around the key book. Like let's say
like the Iliad. Yeah.
Like the Iliad is the key book, but then it creates its own kind of map.
That's right.
Localized map.
Yeah.
And that's throughout
the
whole place. It runs all the way around the store, which we'll get to. And then so it's not chronological by when it was written. It's much more about subject matter, vibe, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you call them clusters. That's a great word for it. I call them also wormholes. So that, for example, you can go into the Iliad, but then you can, sort of churn forward up to the present moment. The idea being that, as Lewis used to say, quoting Faulkner, like, the past isn't dead. Like, it isn't even past. It's still happening right now. And we, part of my goal here is to demonstrate the extent to which classics are continually renewed, and how they provide writers and artists with continually new material. So, it's also a way to break up the canon a little bit, because one of the things I was really worried about when we began thinking about doing it like this would be that it was just going to be a parade of dead white men. But this is a good example of it. You see that actually you have Homer, but you have Madeline Miller, you have Derek Walcott, you have Toni Morrison.
Then I think you have a lot of Chinese philosophy that relates to it as well, or history. Yeah, because one of the things I know from going through it you is that there's a lot of non-European, non-white men, non-American. There's a lot of Asian and other influences.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating.
So, and the other thing that's really cool is that you get to see the extent to which different things are happening in different parts of the world at the same time. So while the pre-Socratic philosophers were going off in Greece, you know, Heraclitus, Parmenides, Pythagoras, similar things were happening in China. You know, right now we're sort of standing in the late Bronze Age. And, you know, I had no idea of what was going on back there and just how globalized that world was with the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Minoans, these Israelites, the Mycenaeans. So you, again, by walking through the story, you're basically walking through a kind of, what we're trying to do is create a timeline of human civilization.
Do you want to explain?
Sure.
Teresa, you should get this up here. Look up above, the very top up, way up there.
Holy moly.
Yeah, you probably need to back up. Yeah. So running along the top of the shelves, we have this essentially a cheat sheet. So this is chalkboard paint. And this is a, you know, we start over here, right? With deep time, where do we begin? The birth of the cosmos. You know, very quickly we get into 3000 BC, Stonehenge, the Egyptians, and our first epic, Gilgamesh.
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt, but these are all for sale?
Yeah, all the books are for sale. It's not a library. People in the early days, we need to start putting these signs up because in the early days, people were coming in and saying, "Oh, this is great! Like I can just take a book." It's like, no, we have to pay the rent. All the books are for sale.
All books are for sale.
But yeah, what's really interesting is right. So you see in the late Bronze Age, all this stuff that's going on, all these different cultures that are happening: the Etruscans, the Phoenicians, the Babylonians, and so this will tell you also some of what we have on the shelves right underneath, and it's also a good marker for me.
Yeah.
When someone is like, you know, do you have the Mahabharata? I'm like, yeah, I know we have it somewhere, and I can scan here, and it's like, all right, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata going to be here.
And it's always changing.
Yeah, that's the other interesting
Explain
thing.
that to me.
So this is I mean, again, you know, people have said to me like, so are you archiving all the books? And I'm always like, no, the books are the archive. But the archive is flowing and shifting. As we sell books and as I acquire libraries from individuals. So all of this material here in the ancient Near East is a fraction of a library that I received from a scholar who just retired from Cal. And so I'm constantly, people are basically, you know, giving me thousands of books at a time, entire collections. And as I integrate them into the collection we have, you know, stuff pushes down that way or comes back this way. For the most part, my goal is to squeeze the present down into as small a space as possible and expand the past behind it. I love this feeling of kind of like the past pushing forward up against the present. I mean, when I started this, you know, when we opened 6 months ago, I think Jesus of Nazareth was right around here. Right now, the collection, we're only at 500 BC in the Persian Wars. Now, you know, like,
Yeah, what's another cluster?
Christ doesn't appear until like down here now.
Wow. A whole new perspective.
Yeah, the past is constantly pushing forward, which is really exciting, and visitors are really getting the idea of it. Like, it's really fun because I've seen people bring friends in who haven't been here before, and they bring them in and they start explaining what's going on.
Yeah, you know,
Like
that's a challenge. I mean, because you start explaining to people it's chronological, and the first thing is, oh, it's when it was published.
No,
But it's not.
no.
It's not even the subject matter.
Yeah.
There's a relationship in these clusters.
Yeah.
So explain another cluster to us. Show us another one that you like.
Well, let's see.
And you can go way down there if you want.
Sure. Well, like this is kind of fun here. So 600 AD is when Muhammad is living and writing the Quran.
Right.
So we have all this material, all this material on the Quran and on Muhammad, the man and his faith. Looks like a biography. And then we have a book on Hajj paintings. And then we go right up to the present with Islam and Democracy, Fear of the Modern World, and a wonderful book by the historian Tom Holland, In the Shadow of the Sword, The Birth of Islam and the Rise of the Global Arab Empire. So in like 4 books here, you go from the original document the Quran, right up to the present day, right there.
And then how about further down? Does it get more?
Well, further down, Marx is a good example. We sell a lot of Marx here at the shop. So we have
Oh, I'm so surprised.
Marx and Engels, Marx in German, and then in English, and then all the commentary on Marx right up to the present day. This is all Marxist studies. And then we come right up to Thomas Piketty, Capital in the 21st Century, and this book by Adolph Reed and Walter Ben Michaels, No Politics but Class Politics, which was published last year. And they were actually here in the shop before we'd opened in January of 2023. And this is the first book that we had a discussion on in the shop, when this was just a shelf.
And every book is for sale.
Every book is for sale.
So do you worry about losing a key book like that?
No.
Why not?
Well, because I want the archive to live. It's hard. There are certain books where I'm like, oh, I really don't want to sell that one. And I always have to remind myself, like, no, you want the books to go out into other people's hands and into other people's libraries, and for them to pass them along, to share them.
Yeah, and then one of the logistics of the story is a lot of it's used books, but there are also new books that you also, like any bookseller, are buying new books as well to fill in, right?
That's right. Yeah. So books, I'd say probably 80 or 90% of our books are used. But then there are books that I know that I want or that people are asking for that I'm not getting donated. So I will order them. So for example, I cannot keep James Baldwin on the shelf.
Where's Baldwin?
Baldwin is over in the 1960s. So yeah, right now we're in 1850 here. So the other cool thing about the chronological shelving is that you see different things that are happening at the same time. So you have Kierkegaard, you have Harriet Beecher Stowe, you have Thackeray, you have Marx, and you have the Civil War. People don't often remember that Marx is actually writing during the American Civil War. So you get to see these sort of overlapping narratives that are occurring through human history. Here's another cool one as well. Sorry, I'll show you where Baldwin is.
Yeah.
So this is all Mark Twain, but here is Percival Everett's book, James.
Wow.
Right. So this is a book that picks up Jim from Huckleberry Finn and sort of tells the story from Jim's perspective. He goes by James.
Which actually Steve Wasserman, the publisher of Heyday, is down interviewing Percival, yeah, for our big dinner every year, Harvest Dinner.
So it flows around here. We're into once we get to the 1900s, we go by decades. There's so much. We're into 1910 here. So this is the stuff that's happening in the 1910s. So that's all 1910. We're into 1920 here. So we have Einstein, we have Walter Benjamin, Virginia Woolf, Faulkner, John Dos Passos, Heidegger. Then down here, we're into 1930, Eugene O'Neill, Beryl Markham, Isaac Dinesen.
We're getting to Baldwin.
Yeah, we're getting to Baldwin. 1940 is here, 1950 is here, 1960 is here, and so this is all Baldwin, all up here. And so again, here's our little cheat sheet for the 1960s. Herbert Marcuse, James Baldwin, JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, John Updike. So yeah, these books will be gone in a week.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Your turn is that fast.
On Baldwin, yeah. Baldwin and Frantz Fanon. I can't keep on this.
Which says a lot about the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. I'm like, wow, if that's what people are reading. Okay, good.
Do you want to show people where the children's store is?
Sure.
Okay, so here, that's Teresa.
So yeah, so we have this little special thing. You have to find Lolita.
Wow.
This little, sorry, it gets a little bit messy. You can walk in.
I want to show people the door. Wow.
So they go in and look at the sign on the right as you go in.
Do I have to be short?
Right there.
This room is for kids only, or a parent with a child. No adults allowed.
Yeah, I can't keep the adults out of it. They're constantly going in there.
Wow.
Adult things. Sorry, it's kind of messy.
That's okay. There's a little
For kids.
sitting area. And kids books. And these are for sale as well?
Yeah, everything. Nothing here that we won't sell. I've sold furniture.
I was gonna ask you to sell the tables.
So I have a question. I have a question, privilege of the recorder. How do you find out about the children's section? If a little kid comes in, do you point
We
it
tell
out? Yeah,
Yeah, if someone comes in with a kid, we'll tell them if they haven't been here. But what's really cool is word is out that we have this room, and so kids come in and they're like, "Hey, I heard that you have a secret kids room. Can you show me where it is?" Kids already know about it. Again, that's a really, really special thing about not doing any social media.
yeah.
Is that everything is word of mouth, and so the word gets passed, and that is way more powerful than something that you see on TikTok or on
It's interesting because,
anywhere else.
you open at 4 most days, right?
Mhm.
I've been here when there are more people than I've seen at any other bookstore,
Really?
just on a regular day. And so as a marketing person, I'm kind of impressed that the word of mouth is more powerful than anything you would do on Instagram or social media or anything, in terms of people actually experiencing and enjoying a place. So
Well, I mean, there's more truthiness to a word of mouth than there is online, and we all know this.
yeah,
Like, do you actually? I mean, how much do we trust of what we see online, especially on social media?
yeah,
Whereas when a neighbor tells you something, like, you're more apt to believe it.
yeah. Unless it's that neighbor who's for Donald Trump. So come this way. So show us the erotica room.
Right.
This is the other side of the spectrum from the kids' room.
Chessboard.
So the original name for the business that my partner and I had, based on the space that we'd seen that still had the neon, was Adult Books. We were going to call the shop Adult Books. The idea being books for grown-ups. We had seen a place in downtown Oakland that used to be a smut store and still had the neon. And we're like, oh, that would
Got a
be
flare here.
that'd be really
Were you going to buy the neon?
really fun. Oh yeah, we'd keep it. It'd be really fun and cheeky. So this is our Adult Books room. And this is where we keep erotica and esoterica and smut.
Whoa.
And what's funny about this room as well is that the only thing that sells as much as Baldwin is the stuff in here.
It's amazing.
People are buying erotica like nobody's business. It's actually
How is a geometric introduction to topology
Well,
to erotica?
we have little jokes that we run throughout the store. I didn't know where to shelve that, but it seemed kind of weird. So let's put it in there. I mean, this one just came in. Hemingway's Quarrel with Androgyny. I could have put that next to Hemingway, but I was like, let's put it in the adult book section.
So you're constantly reorganizing
Yeah.
based on ideas. You and what's your other employee who's bearing all the shelves?
Joshua.
Joshua, I've watched you both.
Yeah.
Let's move this over there
Yeah.
because look, there's this side angle that this
That's right.
glances off of.
That's right. No, we're constantly sort of improvising and shelving and reshelving, which is actually a really valuable thing to do because it means we have an intimate knowledge of what's in our collection.
Yeah, which goes back
Rather than just having something on an inventory in the computer, we actually know where stuff is on the shelf because we've put it there or we've moved it.
So there's no computer search for where a book is.
No.
Yeah, good. And
No, we don't want that. Again, that's part of the thing of no screens is that I want that experience when you go into a shop where you're talking to someone rather than them talking to a computer and then conveying information to you.
Oh, I see it here. We can order it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on here? This is a bookstore, I thought. Yes.
So right, we have this is a full cocktail bar with an espresso machine. It can make you a shot of espresso and a grappa. Then this is our little kitchen prep area back there. We do a good business in drinks.
What percentage of your business is drinks and what percentage is books? If I might be so.
No, that's fine.
intrusive.
I would say, I mean, in our business plan, our goal was about 18% in book sales and probably, 60, 70% in bar sales. And we're running right around that area. I think the books are doing better than we expected, actually.
Do you think that's because people get drunk and buy a book?
I don't know why it is. I think it's because people are hungry.
Yeah.
And they come into the shop and a lot of times they're like, wow, I didn't know that this is what I wanted, but this is really what I wanted. They like it.
And what's the interplay between the drinks and the books? Like, do you offer a free drink if you buy a book or a free book a free book in my trade, or what's the deal?
Our policy is we will give drinks away, sure. Friends, the neighbors, the regulars, we don't give books away. All the books you have to pay for. Those are like really precious. Even if some of them are cheap. When someone buys a big tranche of books, like $50 or $60 worth of books, they'll be, oh yeah, would you like a drink with that? I mean, that's an easy thing. You know, to pour a drink out, it's easy to just refill it.
And one of the things I really love about this space is that rather than selling gift cards, stuffed poodles, junk that a lot of bookstores sell to make some money on the side, those are one-dimensional purchases. I don't go in and buy a gift card and share it with everybody in the room. If I buy a drink, to a bar, I hang out and talk. Oh, yeah. You ordered the Heyday book, the trade. What's that like? I'll take it.
Yeah.
Explain over here.
Right. So the chronological shelving breaks on that side at 1980. After 1980, there's too much going on, and there's too much to sift through. So on this side of the room, of the space, we actually do have sections. We have a fiction section, organized alphabetically. We have poetry section organized alphabetically. We have political science that we're developing, mystery, science fiction. My goal here, ideally in this room, is to dedicate this room entirely to California writers, California publishers like Heyday, and California history. The idea being, again, that you go from the deep past and the universal into the sort of dovetail into the specific present and our locality.
And how much do people hang here and buy books here versus that section?
Quite a bit. It's still the lion's share of the sales are still from the archive. But people they're picking through the contemporary work and purchasing it. We do have these call outs here. So these are all authors who have appeared in the shop. So we have a special shelf for them. These are all books that are sort of must reads that have been chosen by our curatorial members of our curatorial board. People buy a lot of these. These are all books published by or written by members of our curatorial board. So people they ask about this, and it's a nice way to sell these. Like, oh yeah, Jenny Odell, she was just in the shop. In fact, that's a signed copy. I'm like, oh, I'll take it. And then this is my collection of Lapham's Quarterly.
Are they for sale?
Yeah, they're for sale as well. We sell a lot of those.
What is your curatorial board?
The curatorial board is a group of scholars, writers, friends who serve several different functions. The primary one of which is, I know this much about this much. And so I can turn to them and say, hey, look, what are the books from 13th century Japan that I need to have in the shop? And they can tell me a list of titles. They can tell me a list of authors. You need to have this author, that author, or that author. They also send talent my way. The curatorial board, they're established figures in their fields, and they'll say, hey, Timothy, like this fellow's, coming out with a new translation of the first 11 books of the Old Testament. I'll be like, oh, yeah, send him my way. Send him into the shop.
Which leads to the question of how many events a month do you do? Or these, I know you have events here as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of events. We've been open just over 7 months. We've had over 50 events so far. There are some weeks, the summer tends to be a bit drier, but after Labor Day, September, October, I have weeks where I have 3 events a night.
And what's your philosophy on events, and how do you run them as interviews, or how do you?
Yeah, the only, I mean, it started with sort of anything goes. Sorry.
I have it.
That's strange.
Wow.
What the heck? We might as well show people even at the beginning what we got here.
Did you have a bookstore before?
This is Timothy, who is the owner, Timothy Don, Teresa Book, my wife, and camera woman, who I'm handing the camera to. So,
and you've got recording in progress. So
yeah.
Hi.
So this is Lisa. This is Timothy.
Hi, Timothy.
Here's Lisa.
Hello.
Hi.
And there's Teresa.
Hey, how are you, Teresa?
Brad,
Good morning.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Got a good group. So this is a very exciting one. We've been really looking forward to this. So
Yeah, yeah, this is our
When do you start?
keynote bookstore. We'll start now. So welcome those of you who are on there. This is weird because I can't see who's on because I'm in the frame, and my wife, Teresa, who is letting people in and filming, can see everybody. But basically, Teresa and I arrived here literally 10 minutes ago because I got caught in a traffic jam. So I'm trying to calm down a little bit. Yeah, with that person.
well, it's a very exciting to be on location, Steve, and tell us why you chose to be on location, why that was important today.
Still live.
Yeah, we're still going.
We
Yeah.
started with a kind of anything goes policy around events and allowing authors or speakers to direct their own events and bring their own people in. And then I noticed two things were happening. One is I have not met a single person in Christendom who enjoys going to poetry readings.
In Christendom.
It's the best way to take the air out of a room is to have a poetry reading. And the other thing is I noticed that people were showing up and inviting someone to be an interviewer, and that interviewer maybe hadn't even read the book. So I've sort of got a policy now, and I say to people, like, look, just so you know, we don't do readings. We do discussions. So I don't want someone like reading their work to me, or we don't want someone reading their work to us. We can read for ourselves. We're here to maybe get your book. Talk to us about your book. What are the ideas underneath it? What are the forces that animate it? Have a discussion. So our events are really discussion based rather than straight reading.
And you try and
I can't get the poets not to do that, but what are you going to do with the poets?
You seem to have a little attitude about poetry. But when you do events with authors or whoever, you now curate the moderator, interviewer as much as the author themselves.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
There are events. Yeah, I mean, yeah. There are events where the author hasn't had a moderator, or the moderator dropped out at the last minute. We did an event around this book, this wonderful, wonderful book with this woman. I used to work at the Nation magazine as well, and this came through the Nation Institute, and she was going to be in conversation with Rebecca Solnit. And at the last minute, Rebecca Solnit canceled. So I'd read the book myself anyway, so I did the
yourself, yeah.
I pretended to be Rebecca
Yeah.
Solnit for the night. She didn't get the joke.
You know what we should maybe what we should do is find some place to sit down and then see what questions people
Sure.
have for you, because I can't imagine people don't have questions. You know,
Yeah, it's hard not seeing everyone because I can't tell.
I know we're violating the philosophy of your.
No, it's not. I feel bad because I don't know whether I'm.
We may have to let Teresa.
You're just talking to me.
But why don't we start with Lisa? Lisa, you're still there. Do you have any questions?
Uh-oh.
I'm
Lisa?
trying to get unmuted. There I am.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
sorry about that. I'm just enormously fascinated by this whole thing, and I don't know that I've had time to formulate a question because I've been in the process of listening and dialogue. But I'm really curious about the historical focus and this you're wearing a Socrates shirt, and so obviously dialogue is really important. Do you ever just host dialogues, topical dialogues around things, or what's your approach to book clubs or that kind of thing? I'm wondering how you're pursuing.
Yeah, absolutely. So one Monday a month is our book club night. So we have one of my curatorial board members runs an internal book club out of Clio'S. And we send out an Eventbrite invitation for that, or an announcement. And I think about 25 people show up for it. And then we've also spread the word that, like, if you have a book club, come and bring them on, the first Monday of every month. So we'll have a book club set up there. We'll have a book club here. We'll have one back there. these little pockets of 5 to 10 people all discussing together a single book. And then at the same time, neighbors coming through and coming in and having drinks and maybe hearing that there's a book club going on and saying like, oh, how do I join? I'm developing an internal curatorial project that will run over the course of a single year. So one of the things that frustrates me about a lot of bookstores is that their programming offering is kind of a postmodern pastiche. You know, one week there'll be a cookbook author, and the next week there's a magician, and the week after that there's someone on cannabis, and so it's sort of all over the place. So we pick a theme for the year, and we're going to have a discussion every week around some aspect of that theme. We're going to break that theme up into its constituent parts.
What's an example of the theme?
So the first year we're dedicating to friendship, the genealogy of friendship, the history of friendship. So that's really cool because it means we can have conversations on everything from Gilgamesh, right? Our first work of literature, humans' work of literature, to Percival Everett and Huck Finn and Jim, to Aristotle's concept of friendship, to questions of equality and inequality, to ideas of political friendship. So yeah, we have these specific programming events, but then we also have like these Monday nights where sometimes they're themed, and we'll sort of nestle in a little thing. I'm doing an event next week for Lewis Lapham. It's just going to be like, hey, I know a lot of people in this area were subscribers to the Quarterly. Lewis just died. Come on in, and we're just going to reminisce. It's fun because what we try to do here is to keep things very rigorous. Like academics, historians have come in and they're like, wow, you have a really good collection of books. You have all the necessary stuff. So it's quite rigorous, but it's also very warm and friendly. And people come in here and they want to talk. I mean, people have made friends here. I've seen people meet here and then come back together several weeks later. Yeah, well, that's happened too. This is a great first date spot. I mean, this is getting listed as like the place for your Tinder date, your first date, whatever.
But a very literary Tinder date, yes.
I mean,
Absolutely. I want to follow up and see what other questions people have. We are not in an age of excellence when it comes to dialogue. We're much more about discussion, which is literally beating ideas at each other, rather than the Socratic dialogue and the idea of building on things. Is there anything that you're doing that is helping promote people rather than coming in and just pontificating on what they know, but really engaging in dialogue?
Well, yeah, I mean, that goes back to some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning, like dropping the screen. It's really hard to have a dialogue with someone when you're doing it like this.
Yeah. Or 20 people are watching. No, go ahead.
But really, when you get rid of the screen and you get rid of that distraction and you put a drink in someone's hand and they're sitting this close, it's much easier to actually, get into some person-to-person, eye-to-eye contact and stuff unfolds. I mean, it's really, really special. Again, the other thing, because we don't record anything and we don't have cameras here. We don't do anything like that. Like people have, I walk through and people are having really interesting and quite heated political conversations or cultural conversations. Yeah. I mean, people are actually, I've walked by and heard people arguing about the virtues of Milton versus Shakespeare. I mean, really, and like young people that you wouldn't expect to be doing it.
Really?
It's super cool.
Can we interrupt for just a second?
Absolutely.
The video we're watching of you guys is rotated 90 degrees, and so we're looking at you sideways. Thank you so much. I was
how tight is pipe up?
It was okay for a while, but I was starting to get dizzy.
Oh
my God! Why are you interrupting us? Something as silly? No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lisa, to your question, I mean, it's really interesting that the dialogue is self-generating, and it's just like a very organic process. We don't have to engineer it.
And then, are there other bar-like things that happen here? Like most bars in the past, like San Francisco bars, particularly, which are very friendly, people sit down and talk about their relationship with the bartender. Do you find that there are people who used to bar practices like that and they come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we do here is when people come in, we greet everyone. And if I'm over there in a conversation with someone, I always introduce them to the bartender. Like, oh, Stephen, do you know Rebecca? Rebecca, Stephen, you know, we want everyone to know each other. We want everyone to acknowledge the fact that this person has a name and has a life and has a moral compass, and she is here making a drink for you, but she too is a real person, just like you.
And she may appear to be younger than 21, but she's not, right? Because I've noticed you have very young bartenders.
We have one who's very young. Yeah, she's 8 years older than my daughter.
What other questions do people have? You get, Teresa, either you or Lisa are going to have to moderate because I'm over here in front of the camera.
But I don't see a question.
Anybody want to pipe up and just unmute yourself and ask a question if you're so inclined?
If I may, this is Gail from Heyday. I'm the general manager.
Oh, hi, Gail.
Hi, Gail.
I've never been in this space, but man, I have a staff that loves you and loves this space.
That's nice. I love your staff. You guys are one of the best organizations I've ever met. Heyday is super cool, top to bottom. I mean, great people.
Thank you so
You
much.
make great books too. You make really good books.
So one thing as I'm hearing you talk is that, you know, I loved Lapham's Quarterly, such a just unique and thematic, but so history rich as you described. And in some ways, the story is kind of that quarterly, like made three-dimensional. Yeah. And it made me ask myself, gosh, I wonder if if you would ever have any plans to then kind of, so we have Lapham's Quarterly and it's made three-dimensional in this wonderful space, and could there ever be any publications that might come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So my goal, if all goes well here, is maybe by year 3 to create a nonprofit wing that would be a publishing house. And
that's when the Heyday staff's gonna not come here anymore. No.
Or maybe they will all come here. And I would publish. It would be fun. The concept is that I have right now is I would publish sort of like lost classics, stuff that has disappeared from the historical archive, right alongside hyper contemporary Bay Area based writers whose work isn't going to get published elsewhere. I mean, there are so many writers just in this neighborhood. You just turn over a rock and there's another writer, and many of them are good, and none of them are getting published. The publishing industry is under duress. So I would love to sort of set the press up, the publishing house like that, and at the same time, reinvigorate Lapham's Quarterly. Absolutely. I mean, I love that publication. I loved Lewis so much. He was just a huge influence in my life. And yeah, it would be really wonderful to bring it back to life. And there's possibility of it. I'm still in touch with them.
Is City Lights publishing and Bookstore an inspiration in that way, or how would it be different?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how it would be different, but City Lights is an incredible organization.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really cool, great people, really smart, really tightly run. Peter Maravellis has been out here several times. He came out with my friend Gary Camilla. Gary brought him out, and he ended up staying, like, I don't think we were even open, but he ended up staying about 3 or 4 hours. And at one point he called his wife and he's like, no, honey, I know I'm coming home, but I'm in this really cool shop right now and I have to stay. So they're friends. City Lights is great.
Yeah. We're trying to get a book out of Gary right now.
Gary Camilla.
Yeah. So what else? Talk a little about the business side, the finances, and how you started, and whether you're making money, losing money, or whatever's going on here, as much as you're willing.
No, I'm willing to do that. So we are busy. We've been open, 7 months, change. I looked at the numbers. In 7 months, we've done, I think, about $65,000 in book sales, which is pretty good. It's especially good when you consider that most of the books that we've sold I've gotten for free.
Yep.
So that's a pretty good business model. When you get something for free and you can sell it for $10, that's pretty good.
Meanwhile, the bar is supporting it too.
The bar is supporting it too. We have deliberately kept our prices on drinks very, very low. We have the lowest drink prices in the Bay Area, our house specials, the Heyday Negroni, the Lewis Lapham Old Fashioned, and the Ben Michaels Manhattan are all $10. And people have said like, wow, I can't believe I can get a cocktail for $10. That's a little bit tricky. And that is one of the small little frustrations is that I found it with events as well. If you give something away for free or give it cheap, people don't think it's very valuable. Our book prices are higher than other used bookstores. And so people are really treasuring the books. Our drink prices and our events are all free. So that's been a little bit tricky.
So
I have found I'm constantly finding people who are coming in and sitting down and reading a book for 2 hours and not spending a dime. And it's just disappointing. It's not as disappointing as someone coming in and sitting down and looking at their phone for 2 hours.
Or someone not coming in.
Yeah.
But so are you making money, losing money? What's going on?
We are making money. We're making money. It's hard to tell. I mean, we had a lot of the past couple months. We brought our food service online, so there were costs associated with that around labor and equipment. We're expanding into other parts of this footprint, which I can walk around and show you if you like.
Yeah,
it'll be fun. So there's some costs there, but basically our sales have gone up every month that we've been open. And in July, I think the business did about $70,000 or $75,000 in sales.
Wow.
So you have to eliminate cost of goods for food, for booze, for books, which aren't too high, and labor. And that's what you're left with. Rent.
Yeah.
So it's tight. It's tight, but the auguries are good.
It's scaling up.
And as I'm sure a lot of people here know, the holidays I'm really excited about, because I know that I've done enough research to know that bookstores do whatever 40 to 50% of their business in the last quarter of the year, and this place is going to go bonkers.
What are you doing special for the holidays?
For the holidays, we'll have special shelves with holiday books, classics. We'll probably do some special performances. I'd love to do one member of our staff is actually an actor. I'd love to do an off hours or a midnight reading of Christmas Carol. We'll have special drinks. I will also do a membership drive. So that's another revenue stream. We have, I think, 7 or 8 different revenue streams here. And one of them is we have a membership model.
How many members do you have?
We have probably about 40 members right now. And again, just through word of mouth, I haven't been pushing it. Memberships range everywhere from $100 to $5,000. So I'll use the holidays to do hey, you don't know what to get that special someone for Christmas, get him a membership to Clio'S.
Yeah,
get him a membership at this level, and he gets a bottle with his name on it behind the bar.
What level is that?
And his own glass as well that no one else drinks from. That's the top level.
What does that cost?
$5K.
$5K.
You get other things.
Thinking about it.
You also get access to the space when we're not open.
Uh-huh.
So hours like this, if you want to come in and work on your computer, or if you want to have a meeting.
Wait a minute.
When we're not open to the public.
Oh, God. Okay.
You get my cell phone number.
Yeah, wow, that's worth $1,000.
You were talking about San Francisco bars and how they used to be. We have a pretty robust after hours scene here.
Do you?
Yeah, we close at 11, but every night there are people who are members or who are friends, regulars who they stay on.
I see. And then on a business level, again, do you have partners, and how is it funded and how did it work?
So I have one business partner. He comes from the food and beverage industry. So he was sort of handling the build out in food and beverage. I was handling sort of books and the curatorial side and the language associated with the concept. And then we have 3 additional investors.
I see.
So he and I both put in money of our own, and then we raised money from 3 other people.
And if you had to dip into that money that you raised, are you running at a negative in any way?
The past couple of months when we've had these really heavy costs associated with too much labor, bringing on kitchen staff, and additional staff, and then some additional build out stuff. Yeah, the past several months we've spent more than we've earned. But prior to that, we were holding steady. We were basically spending what we were earning.
And you anticipate with the new food
Yeah,
stuff,
it'll go back up.
Yeah. Are there any other questions anybody has? We've been blabbing here. Do you have?
Sorry.
No, that's what you're supposed to do. That's your job.
Hi,
Anybody
good
else?
morning. This is Tina from Heyday
Hey,
Board.
Tina.
Hi, Tina.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Gail. I have many questions and many thoughts. So I won't ask them all. We're all, not all, I shouldn't speak for everyone. Lots of us are fascinated and horrified by where we are today. Can you give me a few titles from today that people are asking for or reading?
You mean recent publications?
Yeah, recent publications that sort of speak to the climate of the country.
Well, we had Tony Platt in conversation here with Steve Wasserman a couple weeks ago. It was a book that I think Steve published, that Heyday published.
Yep.
And I think I had
About UC.
Yeah, about UC. And it's
University of California.
Yeah, it's Sorted Past. Sold a lot of those. If you're talking about, specifically political stuff around the upcoming election, I don't really wade into that too much. I sort of feel about that the way I do when people ask, like, do you have a self-help section? Our self-help section is over there behind the bar. Literally.
I've been using that tactic as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sorry. I can't. Oftentimes, I'll turn a conversation like that or a question like that into an invitation for the person to look into the past and gain some solace and some inspiration from what's happened in the past. Because what we're living through today, this isn't the first time this has happened. We like to think that it is, and there are very unique, of course, unusual aspects to it. But demagogues and demagoguery go all the way back to 5th century Athens.
Sure.
And if you want to understand, for me, if you want to understand some of what's going on today, look into the past. Like the wreckage of the past is the lumber that we can use to construct our present. We're constantly pushing that line. I don't really care about the present. It's fleeting. I'm in it and it's gone. And I like being in the present because we get to do this right now at this moment.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that, and I was speaking with someone yesterday about it. I mean, this is a very, very confusing time to live, and our attempts to sort of get a hold of it and ferociously contain it and control it are actually counterproductive to our own flourishing.
Tina, what else did you want to ask?
Well, I mean, these are just very personal questions. So how did you pick Oakland for your location?
Well, I live around the corner. Literally, I live around the corner from here. That's how I found this location. And Oakland, I moved to a decade ago from New York in order to start the Oakland Book Festival. My wife, my ex-wife, and I and my children packed everything up and came to Oakland to do this, to start the Oakland Book Festival. And then, moving is hard on a marriage.
Yeah.
So that kind of fell apart. And then I found myself here, having left New York and left my family and left my job. Sort of like, okay, well, I left Rome and moved to Gaul, and now I'm stuck here. The cool thing is, though, I couldn't do this in New York. I mean, Oakland is tricky. It's got problems of its own, but this is actually the only place that I know of that I could do this, because Oakland is, because it's such a strange place and because it's sort of one step away from being a failed city. You have a lot of leeway to do things.
Yeah.
I have, people from City Hall come through here all the time, and I'm saying like, hey, you think it would be okay, like, if I put some tables like out there on the grass and started doing service out there, and they're like, Timothy, do what you want?
Oh, that's neat. So, okay, so I was born and brought up in Berkeley. This is my last question. But I don't know where you are. Can you give me some markers of where your bookstore is?
Do you know where Fairyland is? Fairyland or St. Paul's School?
Kind of, yeah,
We're
yeah.
not that far from Lake Merritt.
Yeah, Lake
Okay,
Merritt
okay,
is one
gotcha.
block behind me. We're on
Okay.
Grand Avenue.
Yes,
So
gotcha.
about half a mile down from here is the movie theater, the beautiful
Okay.
movie theater.
The left-wing movie theater.
The one that always has all the anti-Trump.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're
Yeah.
right next door. There's an Ethiopian restaurant called In Sorrow. We're right next door to them.
There's a lot of ethnic restaurants right in
Yeah,
this
the
neighborhood.
Korean barbecue, John Ga House is across the street.
Before we finish, because we're sort of at the stopping point, as fascinating as it's been, does anybody else have a question they want to ask? Is anything else? Lisa, you want to pipe up finally, or have anything else?
I actually
Well-
have a question, Steve.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can you do this in other bookstores and bars around the area? You're real good at it.
Oh, me or him?
You.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. We've turned the Storybrand session, which is what this is, into a monthly sort of chronicling of unusual bookstores that are really, I hope, helpful to other bookstore owners in terms of a direction you go. You don't have to be quite as dogmatic as Timothy, but I think one of the things that drives the attention of this place is how dogmatic he is. I love it. And so it's an idea that we did Libraria in East London last time, I think. We had Paul from City Lights on as sort of a historical reference. And I think we should continue to do that. And that's what you're saying, Brad, right?
Live.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm
And that's live, yeah.
inspired because I always wanted to do a bookstore and wine bar here in the area.
Yeah.
And so I'm inspired to see that it's working up there. And wine's a lot cheaper to sell than buying a liquor license. So, always watching
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Why,
Go ahead.
wine works. And so does, and Steve, I'm aware of time, and I echo what Brad said. I think being on location and being together face to face, eye to eye is, I don't think you could have done this interview any other way. And I love what you're doing, and what Steve and I are doing, we call Beyond Bookstores, because we're really looking at getting outside the walls of our own thinking. And that we like to say that if you've got 10 great bookstores and they're side by side, you should be able to go into each of them and have a totally unique experience, because it needs to stem from the person and the passions in that person and each person. And that's very much what you've demonstrated here, is the beauty of what happens when you really embrace everything that you are and know and believe, and make it take physical form. So thank you for this, and thank you,
You're
Steve,
welcome.
for being on site and making this happen. So this is
Lisa, I was living a life like you. Teresa and I were panicked because we were supposed to be here at 8:15 and we didn't get here till 10 to 9 because of a crash on the freeway. So it's been quite a wonderful experience that way as well.
Why is that like Lisa?
Because she's always driving.
Oh,
Lisa's
okay.
always driving to something. Even though she lives in a small town. But yeah, I think we'll do more of this. It's going to be tough to top Clio'S, but we'll try and find, maybe Timothy will even have some suggestions, but we'll try and find some other bookstores that are breaking the mold, which is our whole point about Beyond Bookstores.
Can I ask our guests a question?
Sure.
So this is my first bookstore. I've worked in them before. I've been in publishing, but advice, things to look out for based on what you've seen. What do you think works? What doesn't? Any pointers that you can give me, I'd be most grateful for.
Anybody?
Yeah, I think that you've been very open, or you've made yourself very open to events, community events, but at some point you're going to have to rein it in, because it will take over. And I don't mean in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried really hard to keep our events free and open to the public. And actually, with Heyday, I'm experimenting on starting to charge admission, like a just a one time. It's $5 to get in. If you want to drink and get in, it's 15. If you want to buy a copy of the book and get in, it's 25.
Okay.
Because I've noticed that with events, people do take over. People are constantly pitching me events. Right after the stuff with Israel and Palestine started happening, every day I was having people coming in saying, hey, can we do a fund? I want you to give me the space for free and we're going to do a fundraiser for Palestine. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that at all. And I'm not going to do one for Israel either. Like, we're not doing that. No.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Because-
wade into those waters, but yeah, there is a real urge to take over. Thank you for
A lot of people, probably half, have no intention of ever buying a book from your store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's really frustrating.
But
Yeah,
I like the
although-
idea of a cover charge for a bookstore, though. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, for the events,
Yeah.
because that's the other thing is like, I'll organize an event, I'll post it on Eventbrite, it's free, I'll get 60 RSVPs and 15 people show up.
It's a pretty good average in my experience.
Because they have no skin in the game.
Yeah.
Mm.
If you charge even just a nominal fee, like a $5 fee, then they're like, okay, I'm committed, I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the goal for events, of course, is for them to come here, and then it's people who might not otherwise have been here, and then they buy a drink or they buy a book. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people show up for events, especially the poetry events. They show up for events, they walk in, they listen to the project, to the talk or the reading, and they split.
So 2 ideas. Put up a big sign that says no poets.
I love poetry. I love poetry.
Yeah, no.
I write poetry
No,
myself.
we're getting a subtext here. And
Well,
the other idea, which I'm sure Lisa would underline, events are marketing. They're not to sell books. They're
Yeah.
about spreading the word about your bookstore. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Lisa?
Well, I'm going to say that you know, we welcome you to the Storybrand workshop, you know, because we're doing that. And actually, Steve and I just finished a advanced course in display and marketing, and you know, really about thinking differently and out of the box. And I think you would enjoy the professional bookseller school and some ideas there. But you've got, you know, it's really neat what you've done, and I think you're going to learn from your experience. And I've counted 15 pattern languages that you've got in play. I think you're instinctively doing a lot of things that it would be very validating for you to hear about. But that's a whole different session. So, and unfortunately, I think we need to close this one.
Wrap up. Yeah. But particularly on the note of pattern languages, we should wrap up. And Lisa, thank you, and thanks to everybody else, and Brad,
Thank you
and
so
Tina
much.
and Gail, and everybody for attending. So, and all you others.
Since I have no 2-shot, I'll just
Yeah.
end on our guest.
Yeah.
Great.
But why don't you go to the fireplace? We're going to show you his fireplace as our last shot. Right over there.
This is when I trip.
No, you're fine. There's nothing to
Thanks,
say.
Lisa.
And thank you, Teresa, for
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
guiding
Yeah.
us through.
Can't
You're
wait to come
welcome,
meet you.
Lisa. There we are.
I'm planning my next vacation around your store, so
And there is a little staircase up to the street.
lovely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go
Thank
back
you
to
both.
Steve and figure out how to turn this off.